Thank you for joining us today with Love Out Loud Austin. We have a very special guest. I'm really excited that he's here. Um, Most of you will probably know him. I'm getting to know him quite well myself, and I'm very impressed. So, without further ado, we have Brandon Williams. Everyone knows him as Gutta. He is a legend in the city. He is doing a lot of good work in the city, and I'm really excited for what he has coming down the pipeline. So, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So, are you from Austin? Are you like
Born and raised.
born and raised? That's what I
Yes,
thought.
sir.
I was looking you up and I saw I was like, okay. I know he's been here a while.
Yeah.
So you are one of the seeds that were planted and grew.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's
Austin's
impressive,
own.
man. That's impressive. That's why there's so much love for you.
I would like to think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Just as a side note, so I met Brandon at a event, a party, one of our friends, and I was introduced to him, as Brandon. So we were all chopping it up, blah 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 blah. And he was talking about what we're gonna get into, his career,
Yeah.
as a rap battler. And I was like, oh, what do you go by? And he was like, I'm Gutta. And I was like, oh, I know Gutta. I know Gutta. Brandon, I'm getting to know, but I know of Gutta. I know Gutta. So
Gutta's reputation tends to precede me sometimes.
It does. It does. It does. Okay, so let's just get started.
Okay.
We have a couple questions just so your fan base, the people who might not know you, can kind of get to know you.
Okay.
And I'm really excited to kind of hear what you have going on and what's coming down the pipeline.
Most definitely.
So before we do that, though, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your career, your life, where you're from, how you're doing it, how you moved, how'd you get to this point?
Well, like I said, born and raised in Austin. Been here my whole life. Grew up on the east side of Austin. I went to high school and everything, and my childhood wasn't per se the best. Mom did what she could, but there was some obvious obstacles that parents around those times were dealing with.
Right.
Without getting too elaborate on it.
Understood.
So when I was growing up, I was always fascinated with hip hop and rap music in particular, and so the more I would listen to it, the more I became enamored with it. And so at a certain point, I think maybe around like 10, 11 years old, I started to challenge myself to see if I could memorize the lyrics to the songs that I was listening to. How most people will casually start to remember the words to their songs. Like, it was a challenge for me. So songs that I listened to that I enjoyed, I would routinely try and, mimic those artists and try and repeat their lyrics. And so eventually it got to a point where I was able to start producing these thoughts on my own. I would start to think in the patterns of what a rap artist would think, what I assumed a rap artist would think. And so I began to put the words together, and it started as a means just to vent frustration. I never anticipated, because I was shy growing up, so I never anticipated actually letting anyone hear this stuff, or let alone performing it in front of like hundreds of people.
Right.
So and that's just what it was. It was something I would do in private, to myself. And then when I got in high school, a good friend of mine, Devrin, he grew up in the same neighborhood that I was living in. And he started, I noticed that but he was like on a whole different level. He was actually like writing songs and, letting people listen to him and performing them and stuff. And so I can't remember the exact way it happened, but somehow or another we sparked a conversation. He realized that I was interested in it, and he kind of, guided me through the process of, these are the things you need to change to kind of start fine-tuning your skill. And so from there, I kind of developed the confidence to let people hear it, and it just it spawned from there and just kind of took on a whole life of its own, And so I was doing that for a while, just, after, in the midst of doing school and real life, I was still doing the artistry thing, and produced several projects that I released here locally that eventually made it on a semi-national scale. I mean, there's people in other states that still have those particular projects. Started working with a couple of groups here in town, Above All Entertainment, Pick Your Poison, just to name a couple. Those were like my home-based groups, and that's
Right.
what I was working with. And so people were familiar with my work in terms of just being a rapper. And then one day a friend of mine, Jay, called me. You might be familiar with him. He's from the League of Extraordinary G's,
Yeah.
LOEGs. So he called me and was like, hey, a friend of mine is doing a rap battle, and I want you to come battle, because at that time in life, everything that I was writing was very competitive. Like, it was, I was on this mission to prove that I was the best, period, hands down, anywhere, anybody, anytime, let's do it. And so he was like, I want you to come do this this rap battle. It was completely foreign to me in the format that they were doing it. I had done it a couple times, but just like impromptu stuff, like at a club for $100 or something like that. And so I went out there and I got a very good response. It was my first time. They were like 3 or 4 events in, and the guy that I was battling was I guess you could say established at the time, and it was just like, it was basically no contest. Like it was like, and that ended up taking on a life of its own that kind of superseded the actual artistry. So then it, like the rapping kind of took a back seat to the battle rap. And so I was doing that for a while. Like it started to become a full-time thing for me. And I started getting recognized nationally for that. I made it all the way to the URL, which is like essentially the NBA of battle rap. And I've had like 3 or 4 events over there that I've done. And so when all of that was going on, like the scene here locally started to kind of taper off. And so some local guys started to catch my attention in terms of trying to rekindle the local scene as far as battle rap is concerned. And so that's what brought us here. That's why I came back to kind of help them foster that and build on that momentum and create a foundation for the up and coming guys.
Nice. Full circle then.
Yeah.
Started as a youngster, now you're trying to help them.
Yeah.
Kind of rekindle what's going on in the city.
Indeed.
But you said something though, from the East Side,
Mm-hmm.
born and bred here.
Yeah.
When you see the East Side now,
Completely unfamiliar.
what do you think about that?
It's bittersweet, and here's why. Because the East Side that I know, that I grew up in, and I'm sure a lot of y'all know, right? While it has a certain nostalgic place in my heart, I can honestly say we weren't doing what we were supposed to do with it in terms of people. Like I was a kid, so I wasn't doing anything. But from what I saw, the people who were in charge weren't doing anything with it. The community leaders weren't doing anything positive with it. Like it was, there were certain spots, where it was like, yeah, that's productive for our people. And for the most part, it wasn't though. So we kind of made it to where it was easy for it to be quote unquote gentrified. The way it looks now is kind of our doing, and so it's like you can be upset about it, but what were we doing positive with it for us to be upset for? You know what I mean?
That's a good point. I
Yeah.
was just headed to the studio and going up 12th Street, I think, and I saw a yoga studio.
Yeah.
And that's a yoga studio.
I remark on that all the time. Like there was I want to say about 4 years ago, my daughter was going to be a part of this dance thing for the church that she attends, and they had a practice. And so her mother was like, hey, can you take her to the practice? I've got something to do. It was like a Saturday morning or whatever. And I was like, sure, no problem. So we get in the car. She sends me the address, type it into the GPS. And as I'm typing it, I noticed it said 12th Street. And I'm like, I know exactly where that's at. Like, yeah, we're good. So I drive over. And when I pull up, it's like, this ain't the 12th Street that I remember. Like, I've always noticed it changing gradually, but I hadn't fully realized how much it had changed. And so she's in there and she's practicing, and I'm sitting, and it's literally, it wasn't 12th Street, it was 11th Street, right behind Franklin's. So, there's that Wells Fargo building right there. There's a little dance studio in the bottom left corner of that building. And so I'm sitting outside because there's no room for spectators inside, only the dancers and the instructors. So I'm sitting outside, and I'm just kind of, it's like 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. And I'm looking at something that looks familiar to me, but in the same moment doesn't look familiar. And I just remember sitting there, and I was reflecting on what used to be. And then I was just kind of hit with this insane duality all in one moment. So like on one side of the street, there's like, high-rise condos, and there's, couldn't have been more than like 120-pound white guy in some Bermuda shorts, walking a little lap dog.
Right.
And I'm thinking like 10 years ago, you wouldn't have even drove past the street, let alone be out walking at any time of day.
Right.
And then literally like 10 seconds later, I look to the other side of the street, and there's an older black gentleman who clearly doesn't realize this area isn't what it used to be. So he's got all the markings of somebody who was around during a quote unquote heyday of that area.
Right.
And it was just like, just seeing it at the same time, just kind of, it threw me for a loop. And it was just like, none of this is what it used to be. It's not what I remember.
But it is Austin.
But it is Austin.
But it is
Can't change
Austin.
that part.
Can't change that part. Excellent. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I want to know what you're doing, man. What's next for Gutter? What do you got coming down the pipeline?
Well, right now, I've been promising the city that I was going to do another project. So I'm working on that. I've actually started writing and recording. So I'm working on that, as well as, like I said, trying to build the battle rap platform back to prominence. So that's my main focus right now, those two things.
Okay. How do you do that? How do you build back up the battle rap, like genre or push in the city?
Well, the thing is it's building it back up is just a matter of putting together events that are of the highest quality in every term of the word, in every sense of the word. Like, so, not just, finding a local abandoned basement or something, or, just any space we can find and throwing people in there, but actually putting on events where people can come out and feel comfortable in the environment they're in and feel like someone took time, energy, and money to make this happen and make it successful, as well as bringing in quality talent
Yeah.
to fuel, make people want to come out and see it, because it's one thing for you to just say that we're doing this, but if it's not something that people are willing to get behind, if it's not something that people are entertained by and they're looking forward to more of it, then you're kind of spinning your wheels. So, identifying the talent and bringing in talent that's worth their time and money.
Seems like a huge task. It's kind of daunting. Are you doing this on your own, or?
So my first event kind of exposed me to that. I didn't realize, because for up until that point, my whole experience with battle rap has just been from a performance side, so someone calls me or shoots me a message on any social media platform, hey, we want you to come up and battle so-and-so on this date, and then we iron out the particulars and I go make it happen, right? Like, so my involvement is just, show up, ready to perform, get on stage, perform, shake hands, smile, mingle, make contacts, and then go about my business.
Get the check.
Go about my business.
Yeah.
And so in setting up the first event, which was Steel Sharp and Steel, we did it on May 12th of this year. And so setting up the event just kind of opened my eyes to some of the pitfalls that I didn't know were there. And then actually seeing and understanding the frustration of other league owners, because prior to that, I didn't think that job was that difficult. I mean, I knew there was a certain degree of difficulty to it because I've thrown other types of events involved with rap and hip hop. So I knew there was some difficulty to it. I just didn't realize how much goes into actually putting on a battle rap event. So it was a learning experience. I took a lot away from it, and I think the next one will go even smoother.
I think we just got an exclusive, though. He said other league owners. What do you mean by that? Do tell. That sounds like an exclusive.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, the thing was my intent was just to put on the first event. That's what my goal was. Like, that one kind of manifested itself through a couple of the talents going back and forth and deciding, you know what, we're gonna exchange words and we're gonna do it right there in Austin. And I was like, you know what, well, I'll make it happen for y'all. So my intent was just to do that one, but in the process of going through everything, I kind of told myself and, a selected few that if it went well, then I would continue, I'd move forward, I'd do more. And despite the difficulties that I faced, it went well. It went very well. It went very smooth, all things considered. So, we will be continuing. We will be moving forward.
So we have a league here.
We have a league here.
A Central Texas League.
Yeah.
Does it have a name?
We're calling it the Kulture.
The Culture.
The Culture. Yeah.
I'm
That's what we do it
man.
for.
That's what we do it for.
Do it
There's
for
so
the
much
culture.
that can involve.
Yeah, and that's kind of what the thought
That's
process.
more than battle rap.
Yeah, that's what the thought process was. I wanted it to be something nondescript so that we wouldn't be limited to just battle rap. We can do any number of events or any type of content we want to put out that's related to the culture. And that's what our focus is going to be.
So how do we bring this back to the community? How does this benefit the community? Who do you see it benefiting the most?
The individual that I see it benefiting the most is that young, frustrated teenager who doesn't really know how to find an outlet for his frustration, who doesn't know how to tap into his creative thinking, so because that's what it was for me. Like I told you, when I was coming up, it became a source of like, okay, if I can write these thoughts out, these are my private thoughts, and and if I write them in this format, it's creatively, it's fueling my creativity, and it's also allowing me to vent. It's allowing me to get that off of my mind, and then I can go on about my business. So I think that's going to be the first demographic that's going to benefit from it, because there are no limitations to to what we will be doing and what we're capable of doing. So if you have something that like, hey, I want to present this at the next culture event. All right, well, let's see how we can work that in.
Do you plan on reaching out to them?
Oh, most definitely.
What kind of programs there? What do you have coming down the pipeline here?
So there's a friend of mine is working with a group of teens at LBJ High School, and they have like, I've actually went over and spoke with the gentleman before. They brought me in, and we just did like a Q&A session, and a lot of the kids there were familiar with who I was just from a battle rap standpoint. And so I'll be reaching out to him to to get any feedback from, because he's right there in the thick of it,
Right.
being in the high school, and so having that ace in my hand to tap into him and say, hey, do you have some guys who might be interested in coming over and helping out with the next event? And that could be any method of assistance, any type of creative input they can bring to the table, we're willing to accept. It doesn't have to be just, oh, I'm a rapper, so I want to come and battle. If you're a poet and you want to just, get up and perform a piece in between sets, we can do something like that. If you like to do graphic design or something like that, maybe we can bring you in-house to help us with production and give you kind of an outlet for you to create some things that way. So any number of things, because there's so much that a battle rap event encompasses in terms of creative outlets, from camera work to sound management, DJs, so all of that's all inclusive. So anything that they can contribute, we're more than willing to accept, and we're going to be reaching out to see if we can provide those opportunities to them.
I can see a good program coming out of that, actually.
Yeah.
Because I can think of a few youth that I know that would benefit from that. So
yeah,
that's a good work, man.
Yeah, thank you.
So what are some of the hurdles that you've been dealing with, you think, and what hurdles do you think you'll have reaching the youth, not only reaching the community, but maybe career-wise? Like, what are some of the things that you think have hindered you?
Some of the things that my biggest hurdle was not having a full grasp early enough of what avenues and routes to take. And what I mean by that is, like, for example, when I was getting into rap just in general, right, I never looked at it from a business standpoint. I never looked at the big picture. I was looking just at that bottom right corner. And in that bottom right corner, all you have to do is just be the absolute best rapper you can be, and then the rest will take care of itself. Sadly, that's not the case. And so I didn't wrap my mind around that early enough, and they say it's never too late, but still, if I had known then what I know now, then, this conversation, this interview would be on a whole different level. You know what I mean? So I think that was my biggest hurdle, and that's what I'm trying to do for the younger guys that are coming up, is to kind of help them grasp the reality of everything that comes with it. You have to be marketable. You have to find your niche. You have to find something that sets you apart from the competition. What's going to make you stand out? You have to be accessible to a certain degree, but not so accessible so that irrelevant points of view are impacting your work. So it's just things like that, I think, was my biggest hurdle, just overcoming that obstacle of knowing how to spread the word for what I'm doing in a positive manner, because they say, obviously controversy sells, and I don't buy into the concept that all publicity is good publicity, though. I don't want certain things to be associated with my brand or my name. So finding avenues that are going to give me that same level of exposure without compromising who I am as a person and as an artist.
It almost sounds like you're saying that you were your biggest hurdle, or a lack of knowledge.
A lack of knowledge, yeah.
The biggest hurdle.
Yeah, I think that was my biggest hurdle. And on top of that, like, I had an artist's confidence, is the politically correct way to say that. So I was kind of bullheaded to certain things. Like, I wouldn't wrap my mind around certain concepts because I thought that they compromised who I was. Like, so I was very firm and not fluid. And as I've gotten more involved with things and I've learned more and I've seen more, I realized that there was no reason for me to be that rigid early on. Like there was still so much that I didn't know, so there was no justification for that rigidness. There was no reason for me to be that firm and that set in ways that were going to change no matter what. So I think just my lack of knowledge was my biggest hurdle, and that's what I'm trying to help the young guys overcome.
Speaking a lot here about young guys and the youth and helping them. Do you have kids of your own?
I do.
How many?
2 girls and a boy. Two
girls
girls, 2 boys. I'm sorry.
2 girls, 2 boys.
Yeah.
I met the young man. I met Junior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my youngest. That's my namesake.
Yeah. How old is he?
He will be 4 in November.
I was impressed because he came and he offered to shake my hand. I was impressed by that. But, speaking of that, tell me about this legacy that you're leaving for them. Do they know what you do? If they don't know, are you going to communicate what you do? Do you see what you're doing being passed down?
I don't know if it'll be passed down in the sense of them wanting to follow in my footsteps. But I do promote their creative sides. We're very big on that in my household.
And that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
mainly,
like
the character, the drive, the talent, the giftings behind.
We're driving. I'm driving that home all day, every day, with them. And they're all unique in their own respects in terms of their creative outlets. And I've just, the biggest thing that I try and pass down to them is to eliminate the fear of trying, because that was one of my big issues. Like I told you, when I was young, I was very shy. Like I didn't want to be, in the spotlight. I was very often trying to avoid that. So in a sense, I was hindering myself. I wouldn't allow myself to live up to my full potential because I was afraid of somebody seeing it and then criticizing it for whatever reason. So that's what I drive home to them most, and that's the legacy that I want to leave to them. Is like, whatever you want to do, you can do it. You just have to decide that you want to do it. And then beyond that, sky's the limit.
So let's talk about what you do and why you do what you're doing then. Tell me your why. What's your motivation, your passion behind what you're doing? Why are you doing it? You could be doing anything right now.
Right.
You could be, anywhere right now.
The why, the biggest part of the why is selfish, to be honest with you.
Interesting. Elaborate.
I create music and battle raps and just putting words together because I feed off of that. When someone hears it and they say, like, how did you think of that? Like, that fuels me. Like, that I thrive on that. Like, I thoroughly enjoy that. Like, and so that's the biggest part of the why, because when it ever gets to a point to where I don't feel like I'm reaching my audience isn't impressed and somewhat awestruck by what I'm doing, then it might be time to transition into something else. The other part of the why is that I don't ever want to be limited. I don't like, everyone, not everyone, but a large part of what we do as a society, you think, once you cross a certain age, then you have to, you go to work, you come home, you take care of your family, yada, yada, yada. But I believe that if you can still do that and then still do what you love, if you can still chase your passion, still chase your dreams without compromising anything else, then why not? Go for it.
Was there a moment that led to that why? Did you have a moment in life or maybe in your work where you were like, okay, this is why I'm doing this was motivating me to do it, other than the reaction you get? Was there a moment of maybe a single point in time where you were like, yep, this is what I'm doing this for?
Yeah, there was a moment. There was definitely a moment. I think it was when my oldest son was, let's call it 11-ish, and he had gotten one of my CDs, and so he's listening to it. And it seemed like he was enjoying it, but I never told him he had to listen to it. I never actually handed him the CD. Mm-hmm. He was just enjoying the music. And then I remember him coming home one day from school, and he said to me, hey, tomorrow, can you pick me up from school in your work car? And at the time, myself and my partner Checkmate, we were doing the Above All Entertainment thing, right? Mm-hmm. And we were all driving. We had like a fleet of white cars, and all of the cars had the Above All Entertainment logo on it. Mm-hmm. So like anytime you saw one of those vehicles, you knew it was one of us. And so my son comes home. He's like, "Hey, can you pick me up from school in your work car?" And when he first said it, like it kind of struck me like, I don't have a work car because I'm working for like a credit union downtown. Like they didn't give me a car. Right. So, but then I realized what he was talking about. And at that moment, I realized that he wanted to be able to show his friends that this is actually my dad. Like this is my father. Like this guy that we all listen to and whose music we enjoy. Like, you know what I mean? Like this person that we idolize. Like that's my dad. And I'm sure at some point when he said that, you know, the kids were like, "Oh, that's not your dad. Stop lying." Da, 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 da. So in his mind, the proof was, I'm going to bring him to school in the car that you guys are going to recognize, because that logo was very big on the front of that CD. So I'm sure he showed them that, you know. So that moment was like, this is why.
Sounds a lot like legacy to me.
Yeah.
Sounds a lot like legacy to me. Excellent. That was an awesome story, man.
Thank you.
That's an awesome moment. We've had a lot of moments, but with it being your son, that's pretty special. But you said something there. You said when you felt like maybe you weren't getting the reaction that you once got, that maybe it's time to transition. Some people thought you may have transitioned because it's been a while since we've seen you on the scene.
Yeah.
So were you just going through some things? Were you contemplating giving it up, or were you just kind of resetting?
Well, the thing was,
repositioning.
It was a transition, but not away from anything. Like, so the project, the title of the project that's still going to remain the title of the project is Chasing Inspiration. And so when I started, like, for everyone at home that doesn't know, like, I've probably got about like 50 different records that I've recorded that I thought were going to be a part of that project. But as I would finish the recording process and as I'm writing the songs and everything, like, the songs didn't encompass what I needed them to encompass. Like so the name of the project, the theme of the project, the feel of the project took on a whole life form of its own. And I wasn't going to be satisfied if I didn't deliver on that.
And we're going to showcase and highlight a lot of Austinites, a lot of Central Texas individuals who are really giving back, who have made an impact culturally to the community, as well as just reaching out. Keep your ears perked, because there's a lot coming out from this organization called the Kulture. So I want to thank you again tonight. Join us again next week. As always, Zach, this is for you.
They say competition breeds champions. If you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. Cardboard could never put a razor's edge on a broadsword. Only steel sharpens steel.